Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Unbound. I'm Nicola Humber, author of Unbound and founder of the Unbound Press. And today I am delighted to be joined by Iona Russell. Iona is a happiness and soul fulfillment coach, and is it your first book, Holding Space, Iona?
Yeah.
Yeah, just checking that. Her first book, Holding Space, is coming out later this summer. Have you got a date for that? Yeah.
I don't. I keep moving that around, but it's coming.
Fantastic. So I'm sure we'll talk about that during this conversation. I'm sure it will come up. And this is the first time that Iona and I have connected in this way, which I was just saying, I love it when that happens during these Unbound conversations, because it's a chance for me to find out more about my guest as you're all finding out about her as well. So it's extra magical. So Iona, thank you for being here with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And it's wonderful to be here. I'm so excited, and I love these meetings like this. So it's just completely unbound, unplanned, and authentic. So it'll be how it's going to be.
Exactly. Whatever comes through is perfect.
I'll try not to swear.
It's unbound. You have permission to swear. And, on that theme, obviously, all of my work, all of my writing is based on being unbound, being our fullest, freest selves. And I generally start these conversations with the same question, which is, can you remember a time in your life, or does a particular time or situation come to mind where you felt especially bound, and how did you move beyond that?
Oh, that's a good question.
Mm.
Do you know what? I think the biggest bounds, the ties that bound me, I actually even mentioned that in my book, it's myself.
Mm-hmm.
It was my own limiting beliefs, my own adopted thoughts, patterns, and behaviors of how I thought I should be, how I think I should feel, what I should do, and how I should fit in. And it's all external stuff where you're trying to fill that void, trying to fit in. So, it was definitely myself and my own restrictions, because any restrictions that we may believe or feel that other people are putting on us, we've actually allowed them to do that. And that may seem like a really simple statement, but it's so true. We can take our own power in whatever our circumstances are and choose how we're going to show up. And so many of us, we come into this world thinking amazing and perfect and beautiful, and then we pick up all these learned ways of being, how we fit in, because we all want to belong. We want to belong to the tribe. Mm-hmm. We don't want to be different. So then we pick up from our siblings, our parents, school, teachers, everybody, like we go into life trying to figure out how to fit in. And some people really are able to thrive and rise above that. But so many of us adopt all these patterns and behaviors that aren't ours. And that's definitely what I did. I would say definitely I held myself back, and I think so many of us do.
Yeah. And how did that show up for you, Iona? What are the ways that you held yourself back and tried to fit in?
So we're going there straight away. Okay. Yeah. I was raised by, I was very fortunate and raised within a Buddhist community. Both my parents are Buddhists, and I rebelled against that at about the age of 14. And I started self-sabotaging behavior. So I had food issues. So I was a failed anorexic, and I don't mean to make light of it, but I got too freaking hungry. Mm-hmm. So I turned bulimia. So food was an issue, drinking. And then at various stages of my life, I had drug misuse. And I prefer the term misuse to drugs and alcohol, because we misuse ourselves in so many ways. It's the overachiever. It's the workaholic, the spiritual junkie seeker. Like we've all, like there's piles of books next to the bed that we read. So it was always looking for external validation. Now, I did have some happy times and all that, but in hindsight, I understand, I was trying to fulfill an emptiness that I felt. I was trying to gain connection, but in self-destructive ways. So some of those friendships weren't true connections. Some were, and we've evolved together. But yeah, it was definitely in self-sabotaging ways and not feeling enough. Obviously, with the behaviors that I took on, for needing to feel the center of like the party, whatever's happening, and I had to do that through artificial means. That's what I thought I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it all boils down to not feeling enough. And those were my thoughts.
Mm. So how did you come to the realization that this is what you were doing? You were rebelling against the way.
Okay, so that was started at about 14.
Mm-hmm.
I would say coming into my 40s.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, for anyone who's like, I'm sure there's all ages of people listening, really stepping into my 40s, it was like a new era. That's when I suddenly, I was married at the time, and I suddenly hit breaking point. And I hadn't carried on all those behaviors all along, but there was always something. But that lack of self-acceptance, lack of feeling enough, and lack of self-belief had always been there. And I think I was about 42, and it was midnight, and I sat up in bed, and I just said, I can't do this anymore. And I didn't mean my marriage, and I didn't know what I meant. Mm-hmm. But I just knew something had to change. And, and I'd been reading, self-help books and doing all that. And the biggest thing that I did was I turned to meditation. I stumbled into meditation, I like to say, but I didn't. I mean, there's no such thing as accidents. As they say, the teacher, what is it? The teacher comes when the student's ready.
Yeah.
And then when the student's really ready, the teacher leaves. But it was definitely through meditation and coming back to myself, because bizarrely, what I'd been looking for all along was inside me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was that realization that I came to through meditation, and then the path that led on from there, and the people I was meeting, the events I was going. I went to my first Hey How convention actually in Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to hear the late Wayne Dyer speak, so I'm very, very lucky.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that was the beginning. And so that was a pivotal point in my life. And with that, my thoughts from the inside out changed, because we can't change anything on the outside. We can only work on ourselves. Mm-hmm. And a few years later after that, I think it's actually, so it was sort of about a few years after that, about 4, 5, or 6, I'm trying to figure out how old I am now.
I forget all the time.
But then my mother died, my marriage retired, I like to say. Mm-hmm. And so then I ended up emigrating again back to my home country, and uprooting a teenager who was reluctant. But I was able to cope, and it wasn't just surviving. I went into survival mode as a mother, but I didn't return to my self-destructive behaviors. I didn't start doubting myself. I didn't start beating up on myself. I was able to go through those major transitions, all happening within a 6-month period, because I had my own inner strength and a power bigger than and more than myself. Mm-hmm. That I trust in. Whatever you want to call it, the universe has your back, or whatever it is for you. I just had to trust, and I do trust that everything was going to turn out fine, because it has anytime I've fallen down on my luck, things bizarrely always work out. Mm-hmm. But it's having that faith in myself, having that trust in myself and the universe, and that self-love. And we're always coming from a place from either in love or in fear. Those are the two extremes, and then we have everything in between. Mm-hmm. And the closer we are to, as someone said to me the other day, is functioning in that place of love and above, which is great when you're there. Yeah. And that's where I was. And I understand for everybody that isn't there, that may sound like, oh, well, that's a bunch of codswallop. I feel crap, my life sucks, and I'm depressed. And because, I'd also had clinical depression. So if you told me to kind of improve your outlook, it would have been, you can't do that. So it's just And I don't believe in faking it until you make it. So it's about just, let's feel a bit better about ourselves today than we did yesterday. It's learning to love yourself where you are now and not comparing ourselves to others. It's starting where you are and just making gradual changes so that you can move closer to love.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love that love or above. That's just gorgeous. That's gorgeous. And it's so interesting listening to you there, Iona, when you're talking about that moment when you sat up in bed and went, I can't do this anymore. And you like came to meditation. And I was just thinking, how interesting, because you were brought up in a Buddhist community.
I know.
Been, exposed from a very young age to meditation. So it's so interesting the way, and I have a similar, my upbringing wasn't similar, but I certainly had that kind of awakening moment in my late 30s. And it's like we have to go through this journey and have all of these experiences before we can start to come back to ourselves, really. And it sounds like that was your experience as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I took the long way around.
Yeah.
I'm glad I at least got on the path there and then, as opposed to later or sooner. But then it's all the life lessons I've learned in between. It's the experiences that I have when I work with people, and it's I get it. Yeah, I didn't have the squeaky clean sort of upbringing in teenage years and 20s. So, I mean, I can relate to people on that journey. The rebels, the mavericks, the, sort of free range living.
Yeah.
So shall we call it? And, and it's doing all those things. And that's what makes me who I am. So it's not that I want to change anything. It's more, and that's partly what my book is. Well, that is what my book is about. It's about my journey. Now, it's not about how not to do these things, and it's not about how not to maybe choose a destructive relationship. It's not about what not to do. It's self-help, and this is what's worked for me. This is my journey. This is where I am now, and these are my experiences. So, in that is my proof. And it's providing a toolbox to people. And I don't want to dwell on the negativity now. I don't want to get stuck in all the oh woe is me, because I don't want to end up in that lower vibration. That's what's happened. I don't want to keep regurgitating that and then stay there and attract that and start reliving that, because that has been something. So some of the parts in the book, when I come to them, even something which is just like 3 lines, a poem, and I'm just like, oh, I'm suddenly there, and I'm like, okay, I can't carry on with this. I need to move on to a different section, because my book is in sections, so I have I have the freedom to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's acknowledging how far I've come, and still how far I've got to go, and also how far we all do. And it's having that belief in the infinite possibilities, and the only thing that limits us, it's us. What we think we can or can't do, that's a limitation. And that's also why I'm not a performance coach, so I don't necessarily focus on goals. To borrow Danielle Laporte's phrase, it's goals with soul.
Yeah.
I like to work on the intention behind or underneath whatever it is the person wants to achieve. Because sometimes we set ourselves up for failure with that. And we sometimes know what we should or shouldn't do, but because we haven't gotten to the deeper why or the higher why, like for self-actualization and self-identity, we start repeating those same patterns and behaviors. So it's kind of like our thoughts, the feelings that we're feeling are actually real, but they're in response to our thoughts that we're having. And then we end up in that cycle of the patterns and behaviors that prove that. For example, some simple ones, someone reaching for chocolate cake. Maybe we know we shouldn't have that 3rd piece of chocolate cake. Wore a load of little chocolate cake. But we're already in that action and behavior. So we need to get into the reason why, but the thoughts and the feelings. So it's, rather than working on it from a superficial level, it's working on it from a higher level.
Absolutely. And that intention is so key, isn't it? And in fact, when we're thinking about goals, and I'm so with you on this, you know, the goals that we set ourselves, they can be limiting in themselves, because they can be, you know, like you say, things that we feel we should be doing, or we see somebody else doing it. It's like, oh, well, I should want that too. And we need to go deeper with that and see, well, what's going on underneath. And sometimes, you know, we set ourselves a goal, and actually what's available to us and what we're meant to be doing is something so much kind of more expansive and magical than that, something that we can't even comprehend right now. So I think there's something about, I love Danielle Laporte's work and the idea of goals with soul. And I love, you know, that you are a happiness and soul fulfillment coach. That's such a beautiful description of what you do. How did you come to that work? How did you come to this?
Well, when I lived in Texas for 6 years as
Mm-hmm.
part of this transition, and I was working with children. I was working within the social services, but representing kids in court. And it's really seeing that sometimes people just need someone to believe in them, because anybody, no matter their circumstances, can change. And I've done that before too. I've done that before too with like I worked at Citizens Advice Bureau in Britain, and I've been running a charitable grant giving trust. So I've always been working for the betterment, to help other people. But working within the system, I did get a little frustrated because, well, you're restricted by the laws and regulations. So not that I'm encouraging anyone to break the law, but it's really making it a change one person at a time. And it's having that belief. And sometimes people just need you to believe in them. And I absolutely believe anyone can change. They just have to believe that they can, and they have to want to. And I also found out that happiness and success are different for different people. And that's why I kind of, so I didn't want to give myself too much of a title, but I was like, yeah, because what is happiness for each of us? And so that's why, and it's about fulfilling our soul desires, living our legacy. I mean, there's so many amazing words we can throw in there, but it was really having that self-belief that I want to use all the skills that I've gathered along the way, my colourful past, and bring them all together into one-stop shop.
Yeah.
And so I also, besides all the training I've had in the past, because I love learning, I wanted to actually get certified in life coaching, and I've got a clinical hypnotherapy diploma. And just, I love it all, because that's really, hypnotherapy is just guided meditation with a destination. So it's like deeper meditation. So if I could make people, and I don't do just the hypnotherapy, because it's all about the life coaching. It's the full package. And what I find is that the nice and beautiful thing about hypnotherapy is, instead of somebody needing years and years of therapy, and I'm not knocking talk therapy, I've done it, I've tried it, and I've tried all sorts, but we don't need to keep, prodding the bruise or picking at the scab, so to speak. If we can go in there and just uproot that limiting belief, uproot wherever it takes us, whatever's holding us back, quickly, easily, and effortlessly, then that's what I'm able to do with the hypnotherapy. And I don't believe in implanting a false negative or a false positive, and I'm not into aversion therapy. I really work with the client, and I take them on a journey, and I talk to them. So it's very close between meditation and just in that deep trance, because that's where this is suggestible. Now, if I could get them to do anything I wanted, I'd get flowers sent to me every Friday. I mean, it's not like that. It's helping someone bring them back to themselves. It's like rebooting them to their authentic self. So I'm not going to make somebody uncharacteristically confident, it's about them doing it for themselves. And that's why I love it. And it just works really well with everything else I do. So it's just able to get in there and get to the root cause. And there's no such, in my mind, so far, there's no such thing as a deep-rooted, just because something's deep-rooted or happened a long time ago, and we don't have to relive any trauma. It doesn't mean it's harder to get rid of. Like, traditional therapies might say, And obviously you have to find what's appropriate for you. Well, that's going to take 5 years, 10 years to get to the root of that. What I love about this way of working is because someone's relaxed, they've got all the memories and files in their brain. I mean, if we think of our brains as wonderful, big, old-fashioned library, if you think of that, like rows and rows of books, everything's there. You just need to be in that relaxed state and go and find it. And so it's just working with those, and pulling out a circumstance or a memory that you choose, and we get to kind of go, oh, well, as your adult self, how do you view that? And some people may view it as inner child work, or I mean, it's when you start getting down to it and explaining it, it kind of covers a lot of fields. But I mean, also, I've read, I have a love of reading and a love of doing new courses. So I just get to keep it sort of, my toolbox is getting bigger and bigger. And that's what I hope to bring with my book, is a whole bunch of tools. People can choose what works for them, ignore what doesn't. And, it's that easy.
Absolutely. I love the way you blend like all of these different skills and modalities together, to create a unique approach, because, I think that's really important that we acknowledge our range of skills and expertise, and we allow ourselves to blend it together in this really unique way. And I love hearing about how you do that, Iona. You mentioned your book there, so let's talk some more about that. What made you decide to write Holding Space?
Oh my gosh. Oh, you'll love this story. So it's the dream I forgot I always had. So I'm named after a Scottish island off the west coast of Scotland. For anyone who doesn't know, it's beautiful. And so I have an affinity to being on islands, being by water. And I've been to Hawaii twice, and once when I was 21. So we'll just leave that there for a moment. So I was going through my mother's things, having already signed my book deal, which is with Sean Patrick of That Guy's House.
Yeah.
And I found a letter written to my mum from Hawaii from my 21-year-old self. Being very philosophical about the meaning of life and what will I do next, because I've always been a bit of a traveler, and I was in Hawaii working for a year, and in it I said, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to write a book. I'm like, I did want, like, I had no idea. And then but it's always been something that's been bubbling to the surface a couple of times, but in more recent years. So when I first moved to Texas and I came to meditation, I was like, I should write a book about how I came to Texas and found myself. So I thought there was some irony in that. And then it's here. So the story kept growing and growing. But it's the dream I forgot I always have. I love that.
I love that.
Yeah, it was just through meetings and chatting to, making connections and meeting Sean, who owns and runs That Guy's House. And I started talking to him about my idea of what I want to write about. And he was brilliant. He's, well, that's great. Let's have a chat about this. So we had a Zoom meeting, and he just told me to come to him with my ideas. I had, those big flip charts.
Yeah.
I had 2 pages filled with my ideas. And he said, okay, Iona, talk me through it. But that's how my mind thinks. I've got so many ideas.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've broken it down into 4 sections, in line with the Hawaiian healing prayer, Ho'oponopono.
Oh, gorgeous.
So thank you. I love you. Please forgive me. And I'm sorry.
Oh, I love that.
Doing it in the other order. So it's about my journey. So even though, and I've warned my ex-husband and various people that I am writing a book, but it's not about them. It's not about anyone else. It's about me and how I showed up and what I thought. And it's in little pockets, so it's not linear, which is great because you'll have a good idea. My brain jumps all over the place.
Oh yeah, I'm with you there.
But it's a book that you'll be able to open at any time and just read a section or read a part. And so sometimes there's poems, sometimes it's a personal peaceful practice, I call them, that you could do. Some parts are a story about a part of my life. So the I'm sorry part is I'm sorry to myself. for how I showed up, for how I behaved, for my disconnection from the universe, my disconnection from everyone else. And that was definitely when I was in that, oh, woe is me. And so that's a little harder, but it does get lighter as we go through. And in it, I'm wanting to write the book that I would have loved when I was 40, when I was trying to go through this, or even, but earlier, so that I'm hoping I can save somebody else taking as long as I did to get here. And I want it to be an easy read, so they don't have to pick up this book and go, oh my gosh, it's a huge novel. I want it to be so that they can dip in and out of it, or take it on holiday, or just kind of open to a page one day for inspiration and connect with maybe where I'm sad, and go, oh yeah, I get that. Oh, it's not just me. I understand. Now, anywhere where there's something sad, I do give them a technique that could possibly help. So I don't just take people down and into that pit of despair and keep them there. It's peppered throughout with techniques. So it's not like, okay, this is a story, this is what to do at the end. It's woven all throughout. So so people can just have it on their coffee table, bedside table, or take it on holiday with them. Oh, I'd love to get pictures of people reading it on holiday.
Yeah, fantastic. And I love the title, Holding Space. What made you decide to call it that?
Well, originally the title was going to be something like The Things That Saved Me, or something along, not quite as catchy. And then I was talking to a friend of mine, Tara Inchbold, and saying, oh, I can't decide what to call the book. And she was like, Iona, it has to be Holding Space. I'm like, what do you mean? She said, every time you talk about anything, whether it's working with people or meditating yourself or going on walks, she said, you're always saying holding space. You're holding space for other people. You're holding space for yourself. I'm like, I do. I say that. And then I was like, oh God, I do. Yeah, so that's where and holding space. So it's learning to hold space in this hectic world for everybody, and in a way that's unique to ourselves.
Yeah. And I think it's so powerful to acknowledge the power of actually holding space, being able to hold space for yourself and for others as well. And as you're talking about it, I'm imagining your book. Your book is actually holding space for each person who reads it, and you as a writer holding that space for all of your readers to have their own unique experience. Like you say, they can dip in and dip out and take what feels good for them, and it just feels delicious. So I'm excited for it to be out in the world, Iona.
Oh, I love your interpretation of that. Oh, I love that. Yeah, because it's yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. I've no one's repeated it back to me like that. I'm like, oh, I like that.
Well, this is what I love about books. Like, everyone has their own unique relationship with each book, and that's what I love as a writer. It's like, oh, sometimes someone will say something about one of my books. It's like, I've never really thought about it like that, or and it's just, that's the magical thing about books. So, like I said, excited for that to be out in the world. And for people who want to find out more about you, Iona, and your work, and also keep in touch to know when Holding Space is coming out, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I'm on all the social media outlets. So you can find me on Instagram, Iona Russell Coaching. I'm on Twitter, but I don't understand it.
No,
so you can find me there, but hopefully that'll just lead you back to Instagram. And I am on Facebook as Iona Russell Coaching. So yeah, I'm using my name and ionarussell.com. And actually, if people want to go to my website, they can sign up for my newsletter, I say under breath. I go through stages where I send it a lot and sometimes where I don't. But I also don't want to be that kind of bombard. Anyway, you can sign up for my newsletter, and then you also get 2 free meditations. One's intention setting and one's for relaxation at the end of the day. And I will have more stuff available. So yeah, so in there I will at some point notify people. But yeah, my newsletter is intermittent, shall we say.
I love that. This is what I say. We give ourselves permission to be inconsistently consistent or consistently inconsistent. It's all part of that kind of non-linear way of doing things,
Yeah.
which is so
Well,
unbound.
I'm consistent on Instagram because I love Instagram because of the images, and
I love Insta.
yeah, and I've just launched my first online group coaching program, which starts next Tuesday, and I've I chat about stuff more in Instagram than on Facebook for some reason. I love the visuals, and I think that suits creative minds a lot in that platform.
I find Insta much more creative, so I'm with you there. Thank you so much for joining me today, Iona. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you and find out more about what you do and the journey that's brought you here. And it would be great to have another conversation around the time that Holding Space comes out. I would love to do that.
Well, thank you. I would love to come back. Thank you so much for having me.
I would love to. So thank you so much. And we'll put the link to Iona's website below this video so you can find her easy. Yeah, somewhere. It will be somewhere around here. Take a look. And we'll see you again soon for another episode of Unbound. Bye.
Bye.